One more night without sleeping, watching till that morning comes creeping. Green door, what's that secret you're keeping?
Damn, that's the biggest fucking water
It
thing I've
really
ever
is
seen in my
like, I
life.
know, it's kind of become like my co-host where I work a factory job, so I'll kind of fill it up with ice and water so I don't have to keep going to the drinking fountain and everything like that. I think it's like a gallon of water, plus it helps me lift a little bit of weight too. So
Yeah, you're like exercising while you're hydrating
all right, let me start over.
simultaneously.
Here we go. Everybody, welcome to Trailer Punk Podcast. My name is Justin Hamline. Today, I have the honor of having one of my favorite artists. I've been listening to him since 2017. Incredible artist. He's currently doing an unplugged tour, which I'm really excited about. I hope you guys decide to go out, check it out. It's pretty amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, Barnes Courtney. Thank you so much for your time, buddy. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me, dude.
Anytime, man. Anytime. Yeah, let people know about this unplugged tour that you got going on. Go ahead and kind of what can fans expect from this tour?
It's so much more ridiculous and chaotic than I expected it to be. I thought it was going to be very chill. I thought it was going to be like low lights and, breezy, like small little vocal sessions, but it's just been pandemonium. I mean, like people like scream things out. I have like entire conversations with people from the stage. Like people call me from the audience and I like put the phone to the microphone. There's crowd surfing. It's sweaty. I guess, you know, I guess that's in me somewhere in my
Yeah,
DNA. And despite the fact that some nights I'm tired and I actually
yeah.
feel like I can't help it. There's something about the interaction between me and the fans that like always gets, I think, both of us so riled up. But yeah, it's been quite an unusual acoustic run compared
Well,
to what I thought it would be.
because I mean, you kind of go, look, we're doing this unplugged thing. It's going to be a very chill, but it's almost like we've gotten to this point where fans want to interact with you since it's such a small environment. I think they're used to you being this sort of festival artist, in the past and kind of doing these big shows, but now it's like everything kind of comes in and it's almost like, when like you go to a comedy club and people kind of start like interacting with the comedian and everything. Everybody starts talking and stuff like that. I think that's kind of like there's a neat new vibe to it, and you don't really see that a lot when it comes to certain concerts. Most of the time people are kind of like in this and then. But I think you really do have like a great fan base where they can go, hey, we're kind of on the same level here. Does that make sense?
And that's exactly how it is. There's a barrier, I think, in like not physically but also metaphorically when you play a big show. And I think especially in a rock show, there's an expectation from both myself and the audience to lift people into a fever pitch where like the entire show is one upward trajectory, and to do that requires momentum, and if you talk too much in between the songs then it can derail the train
Yeah.
somewhat. It's a different kind of show, whereas these acoustic shows, like it's already so stripped back
Yeah.
that it does put me like right on the same level as the audience, and it is much more conversational. It's been a lot of fun in a very different and unique way to the rock show.
Is it just you? Do you have an opening band, or is it just you the whole time?
It's been just me in the past, but the venue started to complain that people weren't coming in early enough to drink. So
Oh,
yeah,
shit.
so I got an opener, but they're good friends of mine. It's the keyboard player from my full band tour, and his girlfriend are playing, and she's super interesting. She's the voice actor for Summer and Rick and Morty. So
Wow,
yeah, it's
that's such a weird like interaction there. That's so crazy.
yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense at all, but I love it. I love the whole chaos of the whole entertainment world where it's like, and even kind of doing a bit of research with you, there's so many different little like things that you're connected with, and we'll kind of get into that, but you've had so many, and especially if your latest song Green Door is on the is it the Wayward is it a show or a movie on Netflix?
Yeah, it was just used for the trailer
Oh, okay, trailer.
of the
Okay,
TV show.
gotcha.
Yeah, but I mean, it was cool because they reached out and they asked me to cover this old '50s song
Yeah.
called "Green Door," which I never would have thought to cover before. But I love doing little projects like that because it takes me outside of my comfort zone and really pushes me to explore things in new ways. And I think like that that soundscape as a result of doing that cover took me back to like some elements of my first album and also like pushed me to do a kind of like Zeppelin-y vocal, which I don't know why I took a 50s jukebox song and went like vaguely
Full
Zeppelin
Zeppelin.
inspired.
Full
Yeah,
throttle play on this one. That's so great. That's
but
great.
yeah, so it was fun, and I've had so much drama trying to release records over the past couple of years because of record labels like buying and selling my catalog. That it was nice to have something done, and the production paid for by a TV show, and just release something finally because it's been a long time.
You got anything coming out new, or are you talking about Supernatural?
Yeah, I mean, I've got an album that I've been working on for the
Okay.
last year, but because of label politics, it's taken a long time to kind of get it done and get it out.
You've been dealing with that like almost your whole fucking life, dude.
Yeah, dude, I wonder sometimes like what it is. They say, don't they, that like if you keep seeing a pattern in your life that you must be creating it.
Yeah.
But
No,
I
I
don't
don't
know.
think that. I think we're just kind of in this moment with certain labels where, it is politics and it is this sort of weird cutthroat thing where people want to kind of take a hold of an album and kind of hold on to a certain project and almost kind of dictate where it's going to go at this point. And now we're in a kind of weird element where streaming is involved and things like Bandcamp and shit like that. And I guess the record labels are going, what the fuck are we supposed to do now?
Yeah, well, I think they're making good money. I mean,
Of course.
streaming, although it's not as lucrative
No.
as CDs when it comes to an individual stream,
Yeah.
the scale has increased enormously. So, people in countries across the world who might not even be able to afford to buy a CD or a vinyl can stream for free on their phones and generate money through ad revenue. So, like, I mean, labels struggled tremendously during the shift of Napster and illegal downloading back in the 2000s, but are making money hand over fist now.
Yeah.
And a lot of the deals are still the same, like 80 to 81% in the label's favor and 19% to the artist.
Awful. It's terrible.
Where they take your 80% as a gift and then you pay back the money you owe with your 20 or 19% with interest.
Yeah.
But that's not been the issue for my career recently. It's that my record label was bought by Warner Brothers.
Oh,
So I was sold to Warner. My whole team was taken away. And then I was on a Warner label called Elektra,
yeah.
and they fired their whole internal team a second time. So like this is like two times in a row when I'm trying to create and release an album, and then Warner dissolved the whole Elektra label. So then I had to leave. So I essentially released Supernatural across three different record labels,
Yeah.
and that was the main issue. And now I'm dealing with another figure who's blocking this record that I can't talk about because it's ongoing. So
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. But no, Supernatural. Let's kind of talk about that where you were able to kind of it's the latest album, so because I want people to check that out, the latest album. And don't forget, check out everything that you've done. It's absolutely incredible since, Supernatural is the most recent album. You really brought kind of both. I mean, you kind of brought back that sort of elements of the attractions of youth and kind of also a little bit of 404 with this sort of electronic music and the sort of atmosphere of that. Tell me about when you came into working with Supernatural. What was your plan to kind of create this album? Were you kind of getting best of both worlds, or were you kind of like, here's kind of what I've been absorbing and here's what I put into the album?
I think to start with, I was very bored of myself. I've been doing like 6 years of touring 11 and a half months out of the year every year, and like a lot of interviews. And I was just bored of talking about myself. And I felt like I didn't have anything left to say. So I came up with this idea that I would write and embody a post-apocalyptic cult leader,
Yeah.
and write this concept album about this guy who professes to be imbued with the devil's own luck, and to join the cult is to be imbued with the same. And wrote this huge 40-page backstory, detailing the world he lives in and like how he came into being, and started writing about that. And ironically, like I think a lot of writers say that no matter what the subject matter, you always end up writing about yourself in some manner or another. So, I kind of ended up through that medium, kind of exercising a lot of the demons that I had to do with my own burnout. But in terms of like sonically, I mean, it was a very difficult record to make because of the three different record labels. We went into some beautiful studios, but then like at a certain point, I was having to record with a different studio engineer. I think it had like 20 different studios and studio engineers across the record, and every time the files changed hands, like stuff would get lost, and like things wouldn't be where I left them. It was kind of like trying to put together like a huge like Lego ship without instructions, and every time like it changed to a different studio, like pieces would be missing and the whole thing would be smashed up, and I'd have to start from scratch. So it made it quite difficult, I think, to create a cohesive album, because I think a lot of great albums, not all, are snapshots of moments
Yeah.
from where you are in one studio in one setting, and you kind of like paint with the colors immediately around you, with the instruments that you have at your disposal. But yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I think I got a couple of songs on there that I thought were interesting. But I think, in terms of my most cohesive and honest work, probably the first album, Attractions of Youth, is the one where I was able to really be very succinct in my feelings. Which is interesting because that one was the result of just me and my friend Look Mom No Computer in a decommissioned old folks home.
Yeah.
Like no real good studio equipment. Like it's just us kind of not really knowing how to produce shit, and just
Kind of going
fucking
with it.
around.
Yeah, just going with
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I mean, like Glitter and Gold, all the percussion is filing cabinets used for drums. Like it's all made on one microphone in this crumbling old folks home. All the pianos, like some out of tune piano from the rec room, and yet that's my most successful record of all time, made for $0. you know.
And I think people are drawn to that sort of, that sort of home like, I mean, I think that's kind of what drew me, is not just the great songwriting, catchy, everything's so goddamn catchy on that album. Like it's like so well done and so well written. And I'm not saying that it takes away from any of your other, 404 and Supernatural, but there's something that just strikes a chord with that. And again, the percussion, it's that sort of stomp clap vibe, but taken to a whole nother level, where you're drawing in from the sort of like, if I may be so bold to say, the sort of industrial, where you're using filing cabinets and you're using the environment around you to record that album. And of course, I'm a huge fan of Scott and Look Mom No Computer, and it took me at the time I didn't know that you two worked together. It wasn't until I think 404, you guys, I was like, oh my god, they know each other. Like it was one of those weird things like I didn't know about until later on. But yeah, it's just such an incredible album. And I think what it was is you were kind of like brought back down to this sort of, because when you were in Dive Bella Dive, I think the world kind of opened up for you as a band, and you're kind of going, here's we're dealing with the studio, we're dealing with producers, and then all of a sudden everything kind of gets pulled, the rug gets pulled out from underneath you, and you're kind of left down to square one, and you're going, I got all these great song ideas, I got all these ideas, and what the fuck am I supposed to do with all this? And you go, well, what's going on around me? I'm here, this, and you kind of just got these elements around you to create amazing art. And yeah, it's a fantastic album. I love it. So
Oh, thank you. Well, we had so little money, like
yeah.
I didn't have management or a label. But I think interestingly, like in that first album process, because there was no money and it was all just DIY, I had the opportunity to scrap songs and start over again, like multiple times. And because like Sam isn't a Grammy Award winning producer,
Mhm.
there was no ego that I had to worry about. We're like brothers, you know? So we would like fight
Yeah.
and like, you know, fall out and like stop talking to each other for a week and then like come back in and it was all good. So like when I was making Hellfire, I think like I scrapped that whole production like 4 times and started again.
Yeah.
And until I felt like it was right. And Sam hated it. It was, oh fuck you know, like, oh no, it's fine, there's nothing wrong with it. And when it's your brother, when you're both on the same level, like you can do that. But when you're like on 404, I thought the whole album was not where I wanted it to be, and I wanted to scrap every song and start again.
Yeah.
But I had 2 weeks with a producer who is like, you know, the guy that did Royal Blood,
Mhm.
and you know he was already annoyed at my process that it was so iterative and so explorative. Like I think a lot of big producers are like, I am really successful. Like I call the shots. Also, this is costing like 10 grand a track, so we have to nail it like first time.
Yeah.
So even though objectively, like the fidelity, the quality of my second and third album was much higher than my first, I think it denied me the ability to explore and to be as honest and you know to experiment.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really shows with that album. And have you thought about just going? Look, let's just. I mean, unfortunately, you're kind of in this bubble with the record label. But have you gone? Look, I kind of want to go back and see if we can get lightning in a bottle a second time and see if we can kind of strip everything down. Or is that what you're kind of learning through the unplugged? Is going? How can we strip everything down and just keep it with the bare essentials?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the unplugged, I've been playing the rock show for so long
Hmm.
that I felt like I wanted a reset.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and I felt creatively like I just wanted to take a break from the rock show so that when I come back, maybe I have some newer ideas.
Yeah.
And also, I wanted to be able to reach more of my fans and tour more consistently. Like touring with the band is so expensive. It usually leaves me about 40 grand in debt
Yeah.
every tour.
Oh yeah.
As a solo artist, because you're paying for the band and you know their hotels, paying for rehearsals, paying for their food, the tour bus, the crew. Like so, unless you're selling like 2,000 tickets a night, like you're pretty much in debt, and that restricted me. I could only tour every so often, and Europe was even more expensive, and Australia was impossible. So I just thought, like, if I do a few acoustic tours, then it means I can kind of like just pop up whenever I want.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And you can even just go, hey, this show was, I feel this energy left from this show and this venue. Why not just do like a little house show and just kind of pop up? Like you have that type of freedom where you can go, there's a lot of bands that I follow that are like, you know, one example, one of my favorite bands, The Chariot, they messed up at one venue. They broke a jar of peaches and they're going, well, we really don't have a venue to play right now because they kicked us out. Where are we going to go? Some guy's like, I have just this old rundown house. You can come over. And they set everything up like they filmed it and was like, just play at my house, and my parents aren't home and you can just kind of run amok at the house and shit like that. But I think that'd be cool where it's like, look, I got this leftover energy. I'm like feeling the vibe of everybody in the show. We can just kind of meet up somewhere and just kind of hang out and vibe and just perform acoustics again, and just play whatever. I think that's cool.
I'd love to do a run of house party shows. It'd be so fun.
How
I've
fun?
looked into it. There's a lot of logistics that like go into it that
Not what they used to be.
yeah, it's like a lot of shit and fucking security and liability and, boring stuff.
Yeah.
But maybe one day I'll just, if I have the money, I'll just set it all up myself and not tell anybody apart from the fans.
I was watching the music video for Animal with Dive Bella Dive, and that really gave like the essence of like what the house show really was like. And we get
That
a
was a
lot
real, that
in
was a
the
real party. Like that was a genuine party, that Animal music video. We didn't tell anybody in that video it was going to be a video.
no shit.
Um, yeah, the crazy thing is, my fucking cousin came over at the start of that video,
Mhm.
and he was like, "Yeah, man, I brought some really good fucking shit," and he gave me this huge like spliff,
Yeah, yeah.
and I got so stoned
Oh,
before the video shoot
paranoia.
that I just could barely function, and the video only has about, I'd say, one quarter of the people who were at that house party featured in the video because people were nervous to like be in there. And
Oh
what
yeah, because of all the if you're underage, you got the drink and you got the smoke, and shit like that.
I
Or
don't
they
know.
just or they
I
just
think
like we
it's
don't want to be on
I think they were
YouTube.
just nervous to be
Oh,
like on camera, even though like they were a bunch of like early 20s kids. And all I needed to do was go outside and be like, "Come on, let's fucking do it. Let's go and like hype everybody up."
yeah.
But because I was so out of it, I mean, we had to cut like half of my scenes from that video because I looked so baked, and we had to like reshoot a bunch of my solo shots like after the party was over.
Yeah. God damn, that's wild. I didn't know that about that's such a like well loved video. Like going back, people are like, man, I missed that. That's how and that's kind of just how things were. Like, I mean, the phones were there, but they wasn't so like attached to us, and we just knew how to have like a good time and just kind of vibe out and just enjoy the environment around us. And again, I think and what I'm noticing with when we were talking about like house shows and basement shows is that it kind of fell apart, but I'm starting to see like a resurgence where it's, more people are doing backyard shows and just kind of going, you know, we can't be confined to these venues and not just be like, are we going to get paid at this venue? Are we going to have to deal with this, that, and the other with these venues? It's like, no, let's just set up somewhere and just kind of perform and just kind of do it the old DIY process like it used to be.
Yeah,
It's fun.
something's gonna change. I think that the pendulum has swung so far in the venue's favor, and artists are an easy bunch to exploit because so many of us are so led by our hearts and so like obsessed with our music that we don't think about the financial side of things. We're like fundamentally uninterested versus playing the songs and writing the tunes and going and meeting the fans. And it's like they say in that Elvis movie: if you don't do the business, then the business gonna do you.
Yeah,
And
a hundred
and
percent.
it
It does.
it happens, like consistently. There are people who love the game of money, are extremely financially literate, who see this group of people with their head in the clouds that just want to write songs and like, oh, great.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's like it's unfortunate just because it really gives the whole I want to be a struggling artist. Like it just goes, oh my god, what am I going to be up against at this point when I keep trying to build my art and sign to a label? Can I trust them? And it's one of those weird things that's like, and plus when it comes to labels, like you said, certain labels are going to buy out other labels, and you're going, oh fuck, now I'm under this umbrella now, and it's just like really just throws the whole thing awry, and it's unfortunate.
The hardest thing is when you get sold to another label, it's a very egoic business. So people who didn't sign you don't really care about your project because they want to be able to say, "We found this guy," you know. And also, if they didn't find you, they don't have as much of an emotional attachment to the success of your project. I mean, like when I put out my single "Supernatural," off the eponymous record,
Mhm.
it was my best performing song ever at streaming. When it came out, like week to week, month to month. But the label was so uninterested in my project because I was like their unwanted stepchild that they wouldn't promote it at all. And it was such a weird situation.
Yeah. And they feel like, and I've noticed that even with like directors and stuff, they want to get their hands on these things and just go, no, just let it blossom like how it's supposed to. Stop trying to control every asset, and even then, it's just like, and even when you're saying, look, my single's doing well, keep the traction going, keep the ball rolling, let people know that this is doing well, and do your part as the as the studio to go, or the label to be like, keep telling people about this. The more that we push this, the better off it is. And it's just they think, and I think a lot of it is money and just like the power of control.
Yeah, I mean they had the money to push it, but I
Of
just
course.
it's focus and excitement, and ego. But I mean, conversely, there's also a lot more power in the hands of artists than there used to be. People who are particularly good at social media and who invest like their time heavily into social media do extremely well. And that's like, you know, an avenue that wasn't available to musicians before. And now, if you're a 16-year-old kid and you take the time to learn to produce your own music, and you take the time to learn how to promote yourself
Oh
on the
yes.
internet,
Yeah.
then like you are sidestepping a huge amount of services that a record label traditionally offers. You know, you don't need to be on TV like on Conan or on SNL. You don't need to be on the radio because young people don't listen to the radio. You don't need to be, uh, put in magazines because people don't read magazines. People don't watch MTV. People don't even watch expensive music videos anymore. It's all about short form content. So, I mean, if you have talent and a good work ethic, then by the time the label finds out who you already have this massive audience on TikTok. You're already streaming huge numbers. Like, there's less and less that they can try and offer you in exchange for your 81% royalties. Um, it's been difficult, I think, for some artists like me from my generation because I didn't grow up with social media in the way that it exists now.
You're like
So I,
5 years younger than me, so you were kind of like in that sort of like we're kind of in that same bump, but you're kind of near the tail end where it's starting to kind of peak where we did the MySpace. We had ones before that, which was like we had one local which was called STL Punk, and then there was like Friendster and stuff, but we kind of had that sort of the beginning of MySpace and how it just totally fucking collapsed, and then we had,
yeah,
Facebook.
MySpace was my vibe.
Yeah, exactly, right. And you
I was
could
thinking about that the other day. Like, I remember when MySpace collapsed, it really felt so hard.
oh, so hard, dude.
Because there was a point where, like, if you were on the cover of the MySpace page, then, like, your band was guaranteed to blow up. Because the whole world of, like, young music listeners was on there.
Yep.
And I remember, like, when I signed to Lady Gaga's producer, Red One,
Hmm.
they, like, put us on the cover of MySpace, but it was, like, a year after it collapsed. And it didn't do anything. It was
Thanks.
crazy.
Yeah.
It was like
Oh,
when Justin Timberlake bought it for a second. You remember
I
that?
know. Yeah, yeah. And it was like, and what sucks is that when it collapsed, it completely fucking collapsed. Like you cannot access pictures like you used to. I was doing this whole thing where I was working on short films and shit like that. I'd put it all up on MySpace and shit. Lost all that. Lost every bit of like, because me and my wife we met, like we knew each other, but we dialogued on MySpace. Lost all those old conversations, like lost every fucking thing, and it was like you really just go in this moment where it's like, is the internet ongoing and collecting, or is there at any point somebody can just pull the plug and just completely demolish the whole fucking thing, the
Yeah, I
whole
mean, I don't think I don't think it's collecting at all. I think the internet as a means of storage
yeah.
is the most vulnerable entity that we've ever had. And in the modern era, we are encouraged by a factor of convenience to store all of our memories and thoughts on this like nebulous medium. But if you think about things that stand the test of time, like even CDs start to deteriorate after about a decade.
Mhm.
Even vinyls like start to deteriorate. I mean, the only things that really last are stone carvings, but like how many pictures do you have from your digital camera from like 2005? Like I bet if you found it in a drawer and tried, like half the time they'd just be gone or corrupted or wouldn't work.
Yeah.
You know, I think we're gonna have an interesting period of time unless someone figures out how to condense the entirety of the internet onto something more secure, where there's just kind of like a black hole of information.
I know. And
We
it's
we assume that our civilization is going to go on forever, but I mean, you got the oldest civilizations. Sorry, the longest lasting civilization that we know of only lasted about 2,000 years in total.
I know. And it's crazy, and and we're at such a weird, chaotic point in this world now, where you know, head against head and people against people, and it's just like, at what point, where's it going to go? Kaboom! Like, if somebody's going to get mad and just kind of pull the plug on the whole situation, and then it's nuts. It's scary. I mean, it's hard not to think about it, and it's like, well, where's this all going to go from here? And is it going to last forever? Is my kids going to be able to access all my old shit when I'm dead and gone, or pass it on to grandkids and shit? Like, these podcasts where it's like, oh, I kind of want to immortalize myself in some weird way, even with my music and shit. But it's like, no, I think at some point it's just like, let me put it into this sort of little, this drive or something to kind of hold on to it. Because at any point, my YouTube can be like, you know what? I'm just going to sell this to this person and that. And then it just, all of a sudden you can't access it without having to pay money. It's like,
And
again,
even these drives don't last that long.
they
You
don't.
know, even the drives are prone to corruption.
Yeah.
So like, what do you do? I mean, at least printed photographs are a thing.
Keep that one
I've been thinking
upright.
about that.
Yeah.
You know, the most bizarre thing though, like of all the like shifting tectonic plates of technology over the last like what 30 years, email has remained like almost unchanged, and like
Unchanged.
you can still access your email like pretty well. Like I can still get on like my AOL account if I want to and like get pictures from it, which is crazy to
It
me.
is crazy. It's nuts. And again, like you said, it was one of those things that just stayed on forever. And even there's times where I can access just all the way back with these emails. I'm going, Jesus, like, how far back? It's fucking mind blowing. And I feel like we're
That's what
getting
I
off.
did with my grandfather's recordings. I got him to like tell his life story basically and recorded it, and
Oh
then
shit.
I sent it to myself in an email and like to all my family members in an email because I thought, well, at least like that's probably the best preservation tool that we have, as flawed as it is right now.
That's crazy. Is there anything you can share about his story? Or you just kind of keeping it between the family?
I think he just wanted to like tell his war stories, really.
Okay.
So,
That's cool.
it wasn't anything crazy. I haven't listened to it for a while, but he was like mainly in communications, in World War II. So, there were some exciting tales, I think, about like him, uh, dodging bullets and like hiding in a river and stuff like that. But
I'm envious of that type of shit where I'll hear stories like that and I just go, why couldn't I just be like, oh yeah, fuck it, I'll go and fight for my country? But then you kind of look back and you go, you know what? It wasn't like what it used to be. I think there's a little bit of, uh, there's a sort of weird darkness that hangs over a lot of soldiers that I don't know. Like it's not like it used to be. If that makes sense, you know what I mean? Like I'd
well, I
like
think
to.
war has always been hell, and it's
Yeah,
always been glorified because the stories are fantastic to tell after the fact, but to live the experience is and always will be horrendous. And
right.
people from the World War II era were tremendously fucked up in a
Mhm.
time before like real therapy existed, before PTSD was even quantified as a mental disorder. Like a lot of people were really, really messed up and would not, apart from apparently fighter pilots.
Yeah.
Apparently, because fighter pilots weirdly had the highest mortality rate,
Yeah.
but your propensity to suffer as a fighter pilot was significantly less because if you were gonna go, it was gonna happen quick.
Yeah.
There wasn't like all this like brutal warfare in trenches, and like long stints without food. Like you lived pretty well, and the fights were exciting.
Yeah. And
I,
I feel like there's that moment of like I do you think it has something to do with this sort of disconnection from being face to face? You know what I mean? Like, when you're a soldier, you're on land and you're you're seeing that sort of like effect. But I mean, when you're a pilot, do you think there's that sort of element of disconnection where you're going, I'm kind of safe in my sort of vessel? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm talking out of my element here, but you know.
I think they were very, I think it was very precarious. They knew the death rate was much higher
Yeah.
than any other, profession in the war. But I think the propensity to suffer, like the long suffering over a long campaign where you're spending like months out fighting and rationing food and running out of supplies, and you're injured and you're wounded, but you're like deep in enemy territory, and it's hard to get proper medical attention. That kind of stuff didn't happen to the pilots. You were either in the fight and then back home,
Yep.
or you were dead.
Yeah, it's you don't really sit and think about that type of shit unless you really just go and watch all these old world. Which I started doing, and it's like you just go, wow, it's insane and intense, and it's like you feel bad for people who've kind of gone through that shit, but then they kind of I don't know, like I feel like there's that sort of like I went through this and survived, that sort of badge of honor, where for most of us it's like I don't know.
I mean, it's also the last conflict where you could sort of reasonably argue that the cause was irrefutable. You were fighting against Nazism. You were, fighting against like legitimate genocide. Whereas I think a lot of recent wars since then have been much more difficult to quantify in terms of good guys and bad guys and what you're actually fighting for.
Right. And we used to like where, the country used to be like, oh, if you have any extra this or that and kind of give to the war fund, war bonds, that, if you have, tin or aluminum, just like little things that you have at home, come give to the war fund and then it'll help, fight the bigger picture. But now it's just like people are like, I can go without him. Again, at times you feel like we're fighting for oil and money. Like it's a weird time.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, war has always been enormously profitable,
Oh,
but at least during World War II, we were trying to prevent the extermination of an innocent people, as opposed to like, to now. And to quantify what I said about fighter pilots, some of them were captured and had terrible times, but the vast majority, it was kind of like, and a lot have said in interviews subsequently, like that was the most exciting part of my life, and I kind of wish I could go back.
right. God damn, that's crazy. Let
But
me
look
get
at
back
that.
in.
My bandmates call me the master distractor because I'm so good at getting off topic.
You're fine. It's I get those moments where I, got the ADD, ADHD, and I start kind of going this way and that way, and I'm like, try to bring it back with the music and everything like that. What album that you love that you really like defines you and your personality?
Oh, like one that I've listened to like throughout my life.
Like listen to and then you go like for example, if you can kind of go, I listened to this album and it really like I feel like there's an attachment there. Like for example, when I was thinking of this question, I was listening to the band Death from Above 1979. You're a Woman, I'm a Machine. And it really felt like there was some sort of like connection with that where it's very fast paced, energetic, fun, catchy shit like that. And it was one of those things where it's like, I really feel connected to it. Cause again, there's times where I'm spazzy, kind of fun, kind of quirky, kind of weird, and there's this sort of weird, like, I guess, like human connection to the music. Do you have any sort of albums where you go, I feel so connected to this album and every bit of the music kind of matches my sort of personality?
You know what's so funny? I was visiting my family in Seattle recently, and my
Yeah.
youngest brother is like now in his early 20s, and I was showing him like records that I used to listen to when I was younger, and I was I was like, oh, you gotta fucking like. He was talking about Jack Black. I was like, oh, you gotta fucking hear Jack Black's first album that he put out with Tenacious D.
Yeah.
And we were on this road trip. I was like, let's just listen to the whole record. And I realized as we were listening, I know like almost every word to that entire record,
Yeah.
which is so dumb because there's records like that I love, like Led Zeppelin and Nirvana, or like um, where I don't know any of the words, even though I love that and that music has been a mainstay of where I hold the bar for what is good. And I think as much as I wish my answer was like Nevermind, I think it's probably Tenacious D's first album that is most reflective of my personality.
It's so funny because I was listening to that the other day, and it brought me back to a moment where I was talking with someone on my podcast, a younger artist, and she was talking about how she, to kind of get in the element and kind of pump herself up to get up on stage, she watched Tenacious D's The Pick of Destiny, and that whole like scene where they're on the couch and they're throwing stuff and he's trying to perform. And when she said Tenacious D, I immediately thought the HBO series that they had. And
Dude, I never saw that. I
yeah,
should watch that too.
it showed my age where I was like, "Oh, you're talking about the HBO shows." It goes, "No, The Pick of Destiny." I went, "Holy fuck!" Like I really felt old because I jumped right into what I remember of Tenacious D being the HBO series, and then the album and all that, and then their Pick of Destiny, which was a great movie. But it was just one of those moments where I was like, I had a flashback moment. I went, "Oh my god, I feel so old as shit," because I didn't even think of To Pick a Destiny. I thought of their old HBO series. Like I just, and I love Tenacious D. So funny, so great.
And it's Dave Grohl is playing the drums on that entire first album.
Our first album. That guy
Like
was
the drumming on that record is actually fucking sick.
so sick.
Um,
And he was in the music video too. Didn't he play the devil?
he played the devil, but I never realized like first time around
Yeah.
because I loved the Foo Fighters and I loved Nirvana, but I never put two and two together and realized that like Dave Grohl was playing drums. Also, like when I was younger in my early teens, I think my understanding of music and my kind of the depth of my love for music hadn't extended to like picking apart the individual kind of musicians
Yeah.
on a track. And then when I listened to it in my mid 30s, I was like, "Fuck, this drumming is like incredible." Oh, of course it is. It's Dave Grohl.
Dave Grohl. Yeah, and I've always noticed that where it's like Dave Grohl was like the go to drum guy. Now I think it's Josh Freese. Josh Freese is fucking drumming with everybody from, you know,
Fucking Travis Barker charging 10 grand just to drum on one track.
it's insane. I think he's become like the new Snoop Dogg, where Snoop Dogg will not turn down a job with anybody. He'll kind of lay down some bars for any. It's like, oh, as long as you pay me, I'll be on your song no matter what. Like,
Snoop Dogg's been so like clever in his ability to remain a pop culture icon, you
fucking
know?
knows who he is. Yeah.
Because there is a way to accept every job and look kind of like washed up, washed out, and like, you know, a shallow husk of your former self. But Snoop Dogg seems to be able to just keep popping up and, you know, with Martha Stewart or like on Animal Planet or like he does all these random side quests and they only seem to strengthen his brand.
I think so. And I guess I mean, that's kind of where it says about the world we live in now, again, where when you're an artist, you need to keep pumping out content. That's it. I guess that's his way of being putting out content is going, let's go on TV, let's be in movies, and it just keeps going into these little, you know, where everybody's attention is drawn to. And you know, I never thought in a million years my kids would know who Snoop Dogg is, and they go, "Oh, I've seen him on the TV." I'm like, "Oh, you don't even know about his albums." Like he was one of those like really scary artists where they all grew up in California and Compton, and everybody was like, "Holy shit, don't fuck with those guys." You know what I mean? Like one of those things. And now they see him as, "Oh, I'm with Martha Stewart, and I'm cracking jokes with Kevin Hart now." Like it's such a weird thing to see go through the transformations. It's wild. Even with like Ice Cube. You know, Ice Cube was like the scariest rapper, and now he's just like everybody's favorite, you know, go-to movie star to have in their, you know, family fun movies. It's like,
I mean, especially in that genre, like it's hard to age in that particular area of hip hop because the subject matter is like so specific to youth. It's hard to kind of like be a fucking hardcore like gangster when you're 60. You know what I mean?
there's nothing to talk about anymore. Like, yeah,
Yeah, so like the smart ones, I think, and the talented ones figured out I gotta shift and do something else.
yeah.
Kind of like what Rod Stewart did when he realized that he couldn't be a sex symbol anymore, and he was just like, okay, I'm just aiming my entire career at moms. You know, like that's
He went the Tom Jones avenue where it's like, I'm just gonna go shift towards the moms and just
yeah, dude. But people forget, like Rod Stewart was dangerous, and he was like considered a sex symbol back in the 70s. In fact, he was considered so cool that Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols idolized him before he like got into a band. It was like, this is the coolest guy ever. I want to be like him. I mean, Ronnie Wood from the Faces, which was Rod Stewart's band, went on to play for the Rolling Stones. Like it was that level of cool. And now, like we think of Rod Stewart as this kind of cheesy old dude shuffling around a stage in his sneakers.
Jesus. Yeah, you're right, 100% right. Where would you go? Like, if you weren't doing music, have you thought about getting into acting? Like, you have, like, I think you would have the chops to be an actor, and you got. I mean, you're a good-looking fella, so I mean, you can get right
Like keep
into it.
telling everyone. No one believes it. Vogue still won't respond to my emails.
Oh,
Um, but
okay.
yeah, I have a deep respect for acting, and I have a
Yeah,
deep love of the craft. I've auditioned for a few things. I think thanks to my experience in music, I know what it feels like as a performer to be authentically connected to a genuine emotion, you know, because when
yeah,
I'm on stage, there are some nights where I feel like, you know, I'm not, I'm phoning it in a little because I can't connect for whatever reason, you
sure,
know.
sure.
There are some times when I'm in the studio where I have to come back and I have to, let me do that take again, you know, tomorrow because I'm not,
Not
so I
getting it.
know how it feels to be plugged in. And I think the few auditions that I've done, I auditioned for Daisy Jones and the Six, I auditioned for Danny Boyle's Sex Pistols TV series,
That's a good one. Yeah,
and I've had a few callbacks, but I know in myself when I'm performing, like I don't feel that same sense of being lost in the character the way I feel lost in the character of a song,
fair enough.
and I think maybe some of it has to do with like learning the lines. I find it quite difficult to know the lines so back to front that I don't have to think about them and I can just embody like what it is that I'm going through and not act as so much just react and be,
Yeah,
but it's something that I've been really like passionately interested in for a long time. And I think, you know, I think my plan always was to kind of be done with music by 25 and then go and study acting very seriously for like 5 years and
really.
start getting into it in my 30s. But you know, like the best laid plans of mice and men often go astray. And, you know, I think I could never get my music to a level where I was satisfied to let it go. You know, I'm completely obsessed. I can't let it go until I feel like
You got to do
I.
something. You got to do something. Like, you got to be in some sort of project. Like, I think you really need to like fulfill that need where it's like, just give me something. Like, have you tried like stage performances and shit like that? Like, tried doing like theater and just going, all right, you know, let me try it this way or that way. Like, trying to
It's
get
just very time consuming. You know,
fair enough.
I think if I was making like a little bit more money,
Hmm.
I would hire an acting coach and just like take lessons every single week and at least. Or maybe like if I was really brave, I would put the music down for a few years and go and like study proper because I wouldn't want to just do it to be famous. I
No.
really love there's something deeply cathartic and something that makes me feel very connected to myself, ironically, to embody a different character. And I don't really know what that is. I think the ability to get into someone else's headspace requires you to be very open in a way and very connected to your physiology, to your own mental state. You know, you kind of have to understand who you are as a person so you can let that go. And I just find all that really interesting and really fascinating. And I
Yeah.
also am fascinated by people, and I often like really overanalyze interactions and like individuals and what makes this person tick and where are they coming from.
Right. And is that what you feel like you brought to Supernatural? Again, let's come back to Supernatural, where you go, I want to step out of myself and into this character and kind of create like a whole nother world. Is that what you feel like you did with Supernatural? Was kind of go, enough of me, let's kind of do this sort of other thing and explore that area. Does that make
I
sense?
mean that was the intention, but
Okay.
unfortunately, because of the label turmoil, um, the story that I was trying to tell, you know, it was meant to be done through an enormous series of visuals. I wanted the music to be ambiguous enough that you didn't have to know the entire story to enjoy it.
Oh wow.
But if you did know the story, then you could hear the references and follow along. But yeah, it was meant to be told through a series of music videos, through comic books. I just recently like paid out of my own pocket to have the cover of one of the comics done because each song was going to have like a comic book and tell the story. So I just here's the cover for
Yeah.
Mother Teresa, which was meant to be on the album, but ended up having to be released after the fact. So that's
That's
the
cool.
cult leader right there, robbing a bank dressed as Mother Teresa. This is his main femme fatale, Ophelia, otherwise known as Lady Luck,
Yeah.
um, who he has a volatile relationship with. They sort of like begin as enemies and become lovers, is that in that classic tale. And this song, Mother Teresa, tells this whole story of this like futuristic cult leader robbing a bank dressed as Mother Teresa.
Right. That's so badass. Like, have you? First of all, who did the drawing on that one?
It was this comic book artist recommended to me by one of my fans, called Scorpio Steel.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's great.
That's great. No, that's good. And have you thought about just going? I'm trying to think, like, kind of putting it out there and just going. I'm trying to think, like, more of like a fan crowd fund type situation where we go, look, I got this project idea where I want to kind of put more out in the world of the album Supernatural, and going, like kind of create ideas with like fans and shit like that, and especially artists, and going, what can we do to kind of expand this world? Have you tried going kind of down that avenue and kind of like making a video and going, here's kind of my idea and here's where I want to go with it? What do you guys think? Do you know anybody I can kind of talk to and kind of work things out with? Like, have you tried going where, who can I talk to about getting help with this? Or is that controlled by the label where they're going, no, we're going to be in control of everything you do at this point?
I mean, the label doesn't mind what I
Okay.
do as long as I deliver like new music and go on tour. Um, yeah, it's just to create that comic in full would be about $14,000,
Yeah.
and just for the cover alone, it was like over $1,000. So it's just like really, really fucking expensive. So I'm gonna put that thing up and try and crowdfund the comic, but it's a lot of money to ask for from the fan base.
Right.
If enough people signed up, then it would be a relatively small amount. But it just depends on whether people want to hear a story about a cult leader dressed as Mother Teresa robbing a bank.
I think it's fascinating. It's cool as hell. And did you like you wrote the whole like typed it all out, got this whole like manuscript thing sorted out, or is that all
Yeah,
just
yeah.
kind
I
of in
mean,
your head?
like every song is just one chapter basically of the story.
That's cool.
And so the song Mother Teresa is just one chapter where, he's robbing a bank and makes his getaway.
I love concept albums like that where you can. And I thought 404 was a concept album just because I saw like the album and it kind of had this sort of like the album inside the sleeve album art where it kind of looked like almost like an 80s sort of like science, because you were wearing the Nintendo glove and shit like that, and I was like, is 404 a concept album, or is you're just kind of going, here's kind of what I felt at the time?
Yeah, it's got themes for sure,
Okay,
but
gotcha.
I think a lot of the songs on that album are about nostalgia.
Yeah,
So a lot of the imagery was like reminiscent of stuff that I remembered from my childhood,
for sure.
like the Power Glove.
Yeah, like the song 99 definitely was like that really hit me in the nostalgia where I'm going, goddamn, like, and now we kind of live in this weird time now where nostalgia is huge. I mean, you'll find pages dedicated to shit from the 80s and things from the 90s. And it was funny the other day, me and my wife, we went on to Internet Archive and started watching I Love the 80s, like from VH1 when they used to have these little talking head shows where they would go, you remember this? You remember that? Like it was one of those weird things. And now, you'll see Vans Warped Tour now does festivals and they're kind of cashing in on nostalgia, and people want to relive these moments again. It's a weird time that we live in, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think nostalgia has always been a mainstay of the human condition, but certainly like in recent history, our trends have changed so dramatically decade to decade that it makes it much more prescient and much more obvious, that your youth is in the past. If you go back to like and look at the 1500s versus the 1600s, 100 years, like decade to decade, not that much had changed like drastically, not in the way, I mean, like, the shift from the 50s to the 60s was so enormous, not just in terms of like pop culture, fashion, and art, but also in like the mindsets of the population.
Yeah.
Um, so, and it seems to only be accelerating.
I think so too. What's weird is me and my wife were talking about, it's a weird topic, but it's so funny. The movie Austin Powers, where he froze
Yeah.
himself and he was in the 60s, and then he came into the 90s, and it was such a huge, drastic difference. And I'm going, if someone froze themselves in 96 or 97 and then came to 2016 or 2026, the difference would be technology is big. Cars are pretty here and there, they're a little bit sleeker. But then I go, would somebody go, what the actual fuck? Like if they came from 96 into 2026 and go, would there be a huge like, what the fuck type of moment? Like if I put myself in that mindset and going, you got streaming, technology is way better. Um, you
I
can
mean,
pretty much.
also like the mindsets of people has shifted more than I think we realize. I remember seeing an interview with the South Park creators about how when they started South Park, like their most controversial joke was that somebody on the show had a gay dog,
Yeah.
and people were like, "Oh my God, this dog is gay!" Oh no! Like, it was like people were like losing their shit. Like this was awful, and now like that wouldn't even be like something worth paying attention to because
Oh,
like homosexuality is so much more synonymous and so much more a part of our culture, and we have Pride Month and we have entire TV shows about two like gay hockey players, and it's just like, yes, sweet.
yeah.
And we got
And
people from all across the spectrum like watching and enjoying these shows, and it's like a total um, non-issue. Well, it's in mainstream popular culture. I'm sure it's an issue, you know, still in certain areas of the world and that are perhaps less educated.
you gotta say, yeah,
Um,
civilized. Yeah, I get that.
yeah, less civilized. But yeah, I think that we'd probably be surprised at some of the cultural shifts we've undergone.
Oh, for sure. And it's and it's yeah, and it's one of those weird things where you go, now they can access pretty much anything that they want. Now you can access any album that you want as long as you pay for it, really. And then yeah, and it's crazy to think about where where would we be if we went through that whole. Yeah. Sorry. Anyways, I just got off topic there for a second. If
That's why we're here.
if there if there was like another genre that you could explore, what would it be? Like if you go in, I could totally go off on this whole jazz or like what would be your genre to go? I'm stepping out of my element. I'd like to explore that musically.
Oh man, I think it'd be really interesting to do like a 70s prog Pink Floyd kind of project.
That would be fun.
I think it'd be interesting. As a solo artist, sometimes I feel a little bit limited in how sophisticated the music can be without a band where every member is a specialist.
Mhm.
Like in Zeppelin, for instance, like Jimmy Page, his whole world was the guitar, you know, and and production,
Yep.
and obviously Bonham's whole world was just the drums. When you're trying to orchestrate everything as one person, I find it just makes me wonder sometimes. I wonder what music I could create if I had a band of people who were like that. But I think the grass is always greener on the other side. I remember touring with the Struts and them saying like, "Yeah, if I was just a solo artist, then it'd be so much easier." So,
What was the most like you toured with so many great artists? Which one was like the most surreal artist that you toured with or opened for? Like where it was like it felt like you opened up for your idols.
um, the Who was pretty crazy.
God damn.
That because that was right at the beginning of my career as a solo artist.
Yeah.
Um, and I had to open acoustically, so that's really bizarre. Like, and also like at the beginning of my career, there was a lot of excitement about like, especially when you start as a new artist, everyone's like, well, will this be the biggest artist in the world? Nobody really knows. So there's like a buzz around you in that first couple of years where, people treat you with a kind of reverence that perhaps you don't even deserve. If you have a couple of songs that start to do well. And Pete Townsend from The Who came up to me and was like, "Oh, I listened to the EP and I love Glittering Gold." I was just like, "What the fuck?" I've been working, selling computers in a fucking like laptop store before that, like working in the stock room.
God damn. And that's such a crazy, like, if people really like look into your timeline, like, again, you were from one band to another, then the band kind of was in this sort of like, we're going somewhere, but we haven't quite. I mean, you guys played Download 2012, which is amazing. That's got to be one hell of a concert to play. But then all of a sudden, label issues and, producer issues with Red One and shit like that. And then it was just like you started, working these sort of like 9 to 5s and shit like that. And then again, you built yourself back up. It's such a crazy fucking story to like read into. And I think a lot of people should really look into that, where you're going, I'm an artist and you see the struggling artist timeline with you. It's such a unique story. And but yeah, again, the year or two before, you were working these nightclubs and working with computers and shit, and all of a sudden you're opening up for the fucking Who. That's insane, dude.
Yeah, it was weird. And I wasn't a specialist computer salesman by any means. I didn't know anything about any of the laptops whatsoever or the printers. I was just like the guy like trying to sell the shit.
Sure.
Really bad at my job. But I don't think that my having stayed in the industry is due to any particular like incredible abilities over my own willpower or uh, discipline or nobility. I think it's just because I was so desperately unhappy doing anything but music. And I don't know why. It's just the way that I'm wired up. But I was just so unfathomably miserable that I couldn't accept living any other life. Um, which is a double-edged sword because it means that like you kind of like you can't be happy unless you sort of fulfill this frankly naive and ridiculous career path.
Yeah. No, I get that. And we get that with a lot of the artists here, where we'll talk about being artists and going, if I don't have a creative outlet, like I'm driving myself insane. Like it starts, and I talked about it one podcast where I was going, if I'm not if I'm so busy with life and I got these creative ideas and I start kind of cramming them in the back of my mind, going, I'll get to that later, I'll get to that later, let me remember that, let me write all that down, and it builds up, and you don't have that release, it's like this tension that just builds up, and you go, I have to keep creating, I have to keep doing my art, or I'm going to go insane.
Yeah, I used to have that a lot more. It's been tough, like getting older, and I feel like my brain chemistry's changed, or like my level of comfort with existing has changed to the point where it feels easier to be a human and to be alive. But that creative tension that I relied on to produce work has disappeared, and I have to rely more on discipline, which I never cultivated in the first place, to write music.
Like, where would you, again, you talked about acting, and like, musically, you're just going to keep going down that path, or are you wanting to explore other avenues? Like writing, I mean, think the fucking supernatural idea is amazing. Have you tried going like, I want to kind of write some ideas down, like maybe write a story or something like that? Like,
I've got stories that I've written down. I think, it just comes down to discipline and putting the time in to flesh it out. I've got stories that I'm really excited about that I've written for TV. Um, but when it comes to writing like the dialogue and actually fleshing the thing out, it's daunting. It's scary.
yeah,
Um, and I suppose I'm always in such a battle with my own discipline, with my own kind of like ADHD tendencies, and to to work as hard as I think I should be working on my music, that to justify doing anything else in the midst of it just seems absolutely ludicrous. You know, I'm just trying to like make sure that I don't stay up all night playing Stardew Valley so I can get up the next day and write some songs.
There you go.
I'm just trying to make sure that I read like some poetry every now and again instead of like binging like fucking My Hero Academia on Netflix.
Oh yeah. I get that, and I try and be like, look, if I'm going to kind of binge watch something, let me kind of see if I can absorb and kind of use that as a creative outlet. A lot of times I'll watch, music documentaries, music shit. I'm fucking obsessed with music, and I'll go, what can I learn from this? What can I absorb? What can I use that and kind of use it in some sort of creative outlet? I guess that's just kind of how I do things, and go, I don't want this, and I tend to have the tendency of going, when you're scrolling with your phone and going, this feels useless. Why am I watching these goofy videos? And then I'll go, okay, what can I aim towards to feel like I'm absorbing information and taking things in where I can kind of use it later, kind of write a few things down where it's like I can use it as a creative outlet. Like I try to do that where I try to discipline myself where I can go, I need to take in good things. I got to quit, absorbing all this shit that I don't need. Like,
I think it's a really good point because there's so much emphasis on eating good food, maintaining a healthy diet to maintain a healthy body.
yeah,
But there's less emphasis on the health of our minds and the kind of mind that we're building. The stuff that we digest mentally, things that we watch, the things that we read, inform the person that we are. Oscar Wilde says, "It is what you read when you don't have to that determines who you'll be when you can't help it." And that people say you are what you eat. You're also what you consume in terms of media. And like if you're just watching fucking like stupid cat videos all day, which I fucking do
oh yeah,
because
100%.
like TikTok and Instagram is an irresistible slot machine of dopamine. But it makes you kind of a fucking idiot. Like, and I noticed that like in brief sections of my life where I can discipline myself to make sure that I read every day, and that I write every day. There's real science behind the act of decoding symbols into meaning in your mind, and the act of doing the same but writing them down, like physically making the symbols with a pen, um, is incredibly good for the growth of your gray matter. For your hippocampus. Like this, these acts physically increase your cognitive ability. Um, and creativity is part of your cognitive ability. Humor is a form of cognitive ability, but all these things are dulled if you're just consuming mental junk food all the time. And I used to, and everyone's brains are different, so I can't comment on everybody, but I used to try and tweak my algorithm so it would only show me like informative good shit. But I find now, like looking at all the videos that I saved, I don't fucking remember any of that shit. Like the only times in my life that have actually been of benefit are when I'm working towards something. My friend used to be the head of Kodak Film, and I remember I was complaining to him about all the shit that happened with my career and the labels falling apart and the producers, and he was just like, dude, stop. Dude, he was like, there are people in life who build things, and there are people who make excuses. Which one do you want to be? And that really stuck with me
Mm-hmm.
because I realized like, wow, I'm not building it. I'm just fucking sitting around like watching shit.
It's crazy because you get in this, and I think people were like that in the 90s and 2000s with television, where it was just like, and I was trying to explain this to my kids. I was like, when you're on your phone and it's your version of channel surfing, like we did in the 2000s and the 90s, where we're going, I don't like that, boom, I don't like, boom, I don't, and it was just like it then shifted to this now where we're going da 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 da, and it's just like, fuck, it's one of these weird like endless loops that I don't think we'll ever get out of, where we're just consuming shit,
Well, it physically changes our reward circuitry in our brains so that we can't enjoy something that releases dopamine more slowly, like a book or like playing an instrument
Oh yeah.
or even a conversation, you
Yep.
know, because we're used to just like the absolute moment something isn't firing dopamine, switching to the next thing that does, which makes it incredibly difficult to function and apply willpower, you know.
Right, exactly. It's crazy, dude. It's so fucking crazy. I was gonna add, Scott, Look Mom No Computer is currently on tour. Have you thought about like, hey, let's team up and do like a fucking thing together?
Oh, I mean, always. We wrote and produced my first album together.
Mhm.
We wrote a ton of songs on my second album together and my third. Um, he's the only guy that I want to write and work with, but he's not really um, in love with music in the same way that the average songwriter is. You know, his real passion is like making weird inventions, like wiring up 50 Furbies together and making it into a synthesizer. Like that's what he loves. He's a tinkerer, he's an inventor. So the music for him is really kind of like more of a hobby in a weird way.
Fair enough.
Um, it's what comes out unexpectedly when it has to. And which is funny, right? Because he's the UK's choice for Eurovision Song Contest.
It's
He's
crazy.
representing England. I really hope he wins, but you know, he said to me in the past, like, I'll write with you for a few days for old time's sake,
Hmm.
but like those month-long sessions where we just used to like hole ourselves up and see what comes out the other end. He's like, I can't do that anymore. I've got my whole like Look Mom No Computer business to run and the brand, which is a shame.
Right. No, I
But
get that.
but you gotta love and respect your friend and want them to do whatever makes them happy.
Is that the one artist that really stuck around like the longest after the disbandment of Dive Bella Dive? Is that you guys just really had that sort of connection together?
I mean, it arose out of charity and necessity. Like I'd been dropped, obviously as had he, and I never learned how to use production software and didn't have any money to buy any. Um, and he like and I was like working these terrible jobs and I was really depressed, selling cigarettes in nightclubs. And he was like, you know what? Like, I'll do my best to help you. If you got song ideas, why don't you come over to my spot? I live in this abandoned old folks home, but I have a microphone and I have a computer and like some instruments. Why don't you come over and let me see if I can help you make some demos?
Yeah.
Um, and that's really where it began. He was trying to, and he just signed a second record deal in his band Zebra to Sony, and he
Yeah.
had a manager. You know, after a while. And I was desperate. I was like, "Oh, please let me like play bass in your band or something." Like please, I don't want to do this stuff anymore. I just want to be back in the. And he was like, "No, you can't play bass in my band, not because I don't love you and I don't think you'd work hard, but because I think it would be a waste. You're not meant for that. You're meant to be a songwriter and a front man.
Yeah.
So instead, like, come over here and let me help you record some songs." And
Such a
then, we did Glitter and Gold, which like I never thought would do anything. I had something I wanted to say. I thought the track was interesting and cool, and like I thought it was like a vibey track, something that I could have imagined being, a deep cut on a record.
Mhm.
And so did everybody else. It was never released as a single. It was never pushed to radio, and it became a platinum record.
It's
Uh,
crazy. And even just fire was used in a movie. Like, did you ever think like your song would be because of the movie Burnt was like blew the fuck up? Like, did you even expect anything like that to happen?
yeah, it was definitely a really weird route
It was
to
unreal.
go down. I mean, I almost like caught the wave and had like a proper, big career. Everything lined up incredibly that year. I was supporting Ed Sheeran.
Hmm.
I was walking the red carpet. I was on Conan O'Brien. I was like, having a top 10 at radio, but all the label turmoil,
Always a
and I
fun.
had a lot of management turmoil as well. I had this like 19-year-old kid who found me and like saved my career, but he never had so much money in his life as when he signed my record deal and got his 20% and developed an enormous cocaine addiction and was just an absolute nightmare. And then I had this other manager who was like assigned to me by the parent company that had never managed bands before, and like she just had no idea what she was doing. She used to tell me like that black t-shirts didn't sell in America and that's why I could only get white. And she'd just like make up excuses as to why like everything was going wrong and just invent things. I mean, it was terrible, so
It's so fucked, man. And I mean, again, it's such a crazy ride that you've been going down, and with dealing with all the bullshit. And we'll kind of try to, like we won't kind of dive into that anymore, just because it's so like But when you're sitting there, kind of going, okay, let me kind of create some song ideas and generate, you know, write lyrics and write melodies and shit like that. At what point do you really find that sort of inspiration? Do you got to kind of go, all right, let me kind of set some time down? Does it kind of hit you sporadically? Like, tell me about your moment where you're going, okay, I have this creative idea. Let me kind of make time and create it, or is it just kind of spontaneous? Like, tell me about your creative moments.
I mean, it used to be that I couldn't get away from it. Like, I used to wake up at 3 in the morning with song ideas. They'd be like in the shower, at the grocery store, when I was doing the laundry. Like, just an endless barrage of ideas. And my voice notes would just be enormously full. And then I'd meet up with Sam and I'd like dump out all the Lego bricks and we'd like try and like build them up into something and see what we could create. But recently, that doesn't seem to happen so much anymore. I don't know if it's a result of like getting older or if it's because I don't have that outlet with Sam anymore with Look Mom No Computer where I can like go in and fuck around. I think like psychologically it's been difficult not to be able to get in the studio.
Yeah.
So it almost feels like there's a level of futility of putting the songs together, like they're just not going to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I've had some success with Stephen King's method, where he just sits down for 4 hours a day at the exact same time and just like writes whatever comes out. But I've just got voice notes and voice notes and voice notes full of ideas, and yeah. So I think if I could make a little bit of money, it'd be nice to like book an engineer in a studio 5 days a week and just go in regularly.
Would you look for like a collaborative producer to kind of work with, where you're going, let's kind of bounce around ideas, and you're kind of just like, dude, I'm so tired of like feel like the whole weight is here, or just dealing with bullshit producers, where you're going, I need to find somebody I can connect with and go, let's kind of dish out some of these ideas, and what can you bring to the table?
Collaborative producers are great, but they're difficult to nail down for the long term. A lot of like really great producers, they have a lot of different projects and you get them for a window.
Yeah, that sucks.
At least with an engineer, like where their job is just to get what you have like down on the and you can direct. At least I can continuously come back to a song again and again and build it and rebuild it and fuck around.
Yeah. Have you thought about just doing like an at home, like, do you have like the patience to go, let me kind of have my computer, let me kind of have my microphone, and just kind of do these sort of bedroom producer type of outlet?
It's probably the main thing, like, that has stalled my career is my the lack of time that I put into learning how to produce by myself.
Fair enough.
Because I have a lot of production ideas, like the song Supernatural, like I produced the song,
Yeah.
but just with somebody who was sat down, like helping me get all the parts in. I don't know why I find it so difficult to stay focused on that shit. I've tried a million times, with a million different programs, and it's just so like technical. I just find it impossible. Like when I was a kid, My mom would like try desperately to get me to do my homework, and there's something about me. I just find it so hard to work alone. She'd like set the timer for 20 minutes and be like, okay, like let's see how much you can get done in 20 minutes. And she'd come back and I would have like written absolutely nothing. I would have just been sat there.
Yep.
So I don't know why there's something about me. I think maybe part of it's being an extrovert, part of it's ADHD. I need somebody else in the room to stimulate me.
I get it.
And I fall asleep a lot by myself. I don't know why. I just sit there and I'll just be like asleep in my chair without the energy of another person to bounce off of.
No, I think that's important is that, it's good to have, and hopefully you can meet up with somebody and be like, look, let's try and collaborate. Let's figure out some ideas. Let's kind of bring this new album to like this whole nother realm, this kind of where it's like you don't like it feels like you're like like you I think you kind of want like the attractions of youth part two, where it's like I feel like I can kind of like feel this cathartic everything coming out and everything's perfect, everything's lined up so perfect that it's like this feels like a flawless album where I can't go, I could have done that, I could have done like that. That's really got to be like drive you fucking bananas.
Yeah, I just need to get to a point where I have enough money that I can just go in the studio 5 days a week with an engineer,
Yeah, sure.
and then it'll be fine. Because yeah, it's like you got to play to your strengths, and my strengths are definitely like I'm electrified by company.
Yeah.
Um,
God damn. Have you thought about like recording like you're unplugged? Like can you set up something and just go, let's do like an unplugged and just, like an album, like whatever the best of this, and then sell the unplugged like live? Like you think people would love to hear? I mean, what do you think? Like just record your unplugs and just go, let me see if I can sell some of these live versions of songs and then generate a little bit of this here and there. And
I did think about that. Yeah, I'm releasing a live album of my electric plugged up show.
oh wow.
So that's in the works.
That's good. No, I think it would be cool to where, and even then, like people are like, "Oh, I was at that show," I remember this, or even just it's fun to hear when you're in, you hear certain live albums and you hear the interaction between the band and the fans, and I always liked hearing where it's like, certain punk bands would just be like, "All right, shut the fuck," like you just hear them like, but I think
Yeah.
that would be so cool to hear.
There's something really electrifying, isn't there, about like the crystallization of a moment beyond the music, where you can hear the people involved and like the conversations in between that are the lifeblood of a concert.
It's so much fun. And I mean, when you're on live, again, we'll come back to the Unplugged tour. Do you get sit down, meet with fans, have dinner with them, just kind of chill and vibe? Like what's been kind of the one thing that's been really like keeping this show going is, what are you able to sit? Because I mean, I've seen a few of your Instagram posts and you're just kind of hanging out, having dinner with people and just kind of chilling. Like, is that kind of just the vibe you're bringing to this new tour where you're going, hey, let's just all just be one element together?
Yeah, well, I was getting kind of tired of the traditional like VIPs. I've always felt a little bit uncomfortable about VIPs because they always seemed like kind of a little bit disingenuous to me.
Me too.
And I like the whole idea that like you're supposed to do like a step and repeat photo, and people are paying this money, and you like. So I thought, like, is there a way to circumnavigate that? And also, people often feel quite awkward in those scenarios. Like, you get a big group of people who don't know each other, and they're standing in an empty concert venue, and I'm trying to like talk, but everyone's too nervous. And I thought, how can I like break down that barrier? What are some times in my own life when I've met people that I didn't know, but it was all right. We were able to kind of find a common ground, and I thought, well, no matter what kind of random girlfriend or estranged aunt comes to Thanksgiving dinner, like it's always seems to be, there's something about sitting down to a meal that seems to kind of like take the walls down. And so I thought, well, what if I, instead of doing the traditional VIPs, like scaled it right back, limited it to 10 people per night, and sat down to dinner. And sure enough, like we did the first one, and everybody started talking and telling me their stories and like laughing and joking, and people were talking to each other. Like there was a sense of community. Like some people didn't even talk to me for half the dinner, like just talking to the other fans. And it was like a really nice vibe. So I've been doing that for these acoustic runs.
That's smart, dude. That is so fucking smart. Like, goddamn, that's cool. Because no, you're right. Because again, with these VIPs, again, you're going, well, if you pay me this, you get to see me, get a picture, get this with that. But it's so you feel like you're next in line, and then you're like, I gotta hurry. Like I can't vibe with the musicians I grew up with, or I'm influenced by, and so I feel rushed. I feel nervous. I don't know the protocol. Like I'm freaking out. Like what's going on? And again, you're just like, let's break down all the bullshit. How about you just hang out with me? Let's have dinner. Let's chill out. Let's talk. Let's whatever. Like that's fucking smart. Like I've never heard of that before. Like that's
I don't know what it is about eating or sitting down to a meal. I don't know if it's like the cultural subtext that if you're sitting to eat with someone, then you must be equals, or like maybe it's like a physiological thing, like when you're eating, your body's like, oh, I'm safe because I'm consuming food, so therefore I must be relaxed and okay.
I think it's really just there's this sort of welcoming environment where again when you're sitting at a table it's very you guys are so close and especially if you're in a good situation where everybody's not on their fucking phone the entire time but you're going let's bounce around ideas, let's talk, let's be fuck it, let's be human for crying out
It's
loud.
weird though, because I'd sell like only 10 VIPs in the traditional sense, where people would come and meet me in the venue, and I'd ask people questions and they'd still be afraid to talk because like the subtext of the situation is we're here to see you and you're the one that's talking, and to like speak up is rude, and I'm like stood next to these people I don't know. It's weird. Uh, the same number of people seem to open up a lot more when sat at a dinner table.
Oh, let me ask one more question. I'm so sorry, I don't mean to do this. What was it like working with Tom Morello on that song now?
It was a tremendous honor to work with somebody that I grew up listening to and revered so much. But I must say, I wish I could have written the song with him from the ground up, because he basically wrote the chorus and all the production and then sent out a call to, like thousands of songwriters. Like, can anyone think of a verse and pre for this?
Oh wow.
And so I submitted mine and I got it, but I got to be honest, like I was never that enthralled by the song itself. I kind of felt like it was a little bit of an Imagine Dragons ripoff.
Sure.
I kind of felt a little bit like, it was very synth heavy. They tried to auto tune the fuck out of my vocals. I begged them to take it off, and I got like, 50% of it off, but it still felt like there was a lot.
That's that's brutal, dude.
You know, I would have liked to have done something that was a little bit more soundscape wise, a collaboration between Rage Against the Machine sound and my sound as an artist.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and that was more guitar driven.
Mhm.
I was very, very grateful to be part of his project, but yeah, I was never much of a fan of the tune. I was jealous when I heard "Bring Me the Horizons" collab with him, and I was like, "That's exactly the kind of shit I wanted to do." It was like straight rage, like opens with a killer riff. But you could tell that there were certain artists that he like actually went and started the track from the ground up with those guys.
God, yeah, that sucks, dude. Well, no, it's a great song. I encourage everybody to check it out. It's doing really well. So yeah, I just had to ask that. Thank you, Barnes, so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Again, you got the tour plugged. I'll post everything up there, and yeah, check out your songs on streaming services. So,
Well, thank you so much for your time, dude.
buddy, I appreciate your time. Thank you, man.
See ya.